Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. And I've put together the top 7 key market drivers I look at when analyzing a real estate market. Go to sethferguson.org to download your free copy. Our guest today is an investor-friendly loan officer who owns 4 rental properties and uses his experience with his own real estate portfolio to help clients maximize their projects. Jerry Padilla is Senior Loan Officer with Prime Lending. Jerry, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate you guys bringing me onto this show and excited to have a conversation with you guys.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. And it's always nice to have somebody on the loan side of things who also owns properties themselves, because I find it gives you a really good bird's eye view of the entire real estate game.
It does. I mean, because that's how I actually decided to get into the investor side of the financing. It's because me and my wife were doing buy and holds, and we did a flip or two just to try to get additional cash flow. And so I designed my business model because of what we did personally.
Gotcha.
So my professional level was designed by personal interest.
Yeah. Well, let's go into that then. So how did you, you said it was all kind of structured because of that. So walk us through the whole process and how you were thinking about it.
Yeah. So when I first met my wife, she was a young 21-year-old motivated woman that had purchased a foreclosure that needed a complete rehab. And so when I first walked into her house, it was completely gutted. She did it all herself and was in the process of putting a new kitchen, new flooring, redoing all the walls and things of that nature. And I saw that she was overwhelmed. So I hadn't actually done any renovations in my life at that point, but I was willing to jump into it. And her now father-in-law started helping me with doing the kitchen and doing all the other work that needed to be done to the property. And we finished that property, and then that got us to wanting to purchase another one. So we bought a property out in Gates, New York, that we purchased as a foreclosure, renovated it, and sold it for a profit.
Nice.
And then continued to grow our portfolio from there. It's gone on a standstill because of children. We have 3 young kids, so it's a little hard to do renovations and flips when you have children that are very demanding.
Yeah. Hey, I know from personal experience. So what was driving the accumulation of properties then? Because lots of people, they'll do one deal and then they'll kind of sit back and that's it. So what kept you pushing for more properties?
I mean, our design was to create cash flow for the future, so that we have continuous cash flow as we get into retirement age and have the passive income coming in on a monthly basis. So that was the whole idea. I mean, we still have plans of purchasing more property in the future. It's just once the kids get older, we'll be able to do that. So given the current circumstances, it's not in the cards to be able to buy more property today.
Yeah. So what would you say your goal is right now with real estate?
I would say that we probably want to own additional, probably, I would say 20 to 25 more rentals to be able to have enough passive cash flow for the future.
Yeah.
We do have higher rental income here, but we also have higher debt load. So it kind of balances out, but once they're owned free and clear, that higher cash flow is going to be a benefit.
Yeah. And what will you have to change about the way you think about real estate as an asset to take you to, let's say, 25 properties?
Getting rid of the fear factor.
Yeah.
That's the biggest concept. I mean, my wife's always looking to see if there's a deal that we could flip or renovate and keep it as a buy and hold, or renovate it and flip it for a profit and to create some liquidity. So I mean, that's just the biggest fear factor right now. And then just having young kids is another concern of mine. Is I don't want to put myself in a bad position if I do fail at something, and then having them to have the repercussions of us failing.
Yeah. No, hey, fair enough. So, because I'm sure that fear factor was there for the first four properties. What sort of things did you do to maybe offset it? Because everybody getting into real estate investing experiences that feeling. So, what things helped you push through that and get those first four deals done?
I mean, so we actually have a property, the money pit property that I like to call it, because we bought it. We thought we were getting a phenomenal deal. But lo and behold, the reason why it was such a good deal is because there's so much work that needed to be put into it that was hidden from us that we learned from that. So, I mean, it's taught me to be more due diligence about the investigation of the initial review of the property before making a decision on buying it. But I think back then versus today is that when we were just my wife and I, a young couple, there is no fear of losing everything. So even if we did lose everything, we could get right back up and get back on our feet and move forward. But now that we have three kids, especially being the youngest 9 months old, there's a different aspect of risk that you want to take at this level of lifestyle versus what we were previously at.
Yeah. Hey, no, I can relate to that 100%. So I'm starting from scratch, round two, and it's not fun, but I think having gone through it once and then getting your knees knocked out and then starting again, you don't lose the experience. So that almost like pushes you forward and makes it even better the second time around. So it's an interesting experience to go through.
It is, and
Yeah.
and I've actually had that experience with the lending side of it too. I fell down and crawled over when the 2008 mortgage bubble happened, and got out of business for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and got back into it after the fact. But I learned to evolve and figure out a niche that was going to make me successful with the lending world versus doing what I was doing beforehand.
Yeah.
So you're right. The experience made a difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. So what are some things that an investor should be paying attention to when they are looking for a lender? Because, as somebody new getting into real estate investing, they might not know the right things to look for.
So the biggest thing that a brand new investor needs to uh, investigate with their loan officer or their lending company that they're looking to get financing from is they need to have somebody that's experienced. You can't have a loan officer that doesn't understand the investing world, because then you're going to get wrong information, mixed information. You're going to have doubt within the loan officer because there's no confidence level. Even though it's all the same products that the regular primary resident client could obtain, it's just a different industry. So just understanding the difference between what investor could do with Fannie versus Freddie, the limitations that you have within all the guidelines is going to be key. So if they're not dealing with an experienced loan officer that is dealing in real estate investing, they're going to have a tough time, and their experiences with lending is going to be bad. It's going to steer them away from traditional conventional financing.
Yeah. And so what sort of routines or rituals have you developed that have helped make you successful, not only on the lending side, but also on the investing side?
Biggest things is that I felt that created the biggest success for me was providing education to investors and continue to try to educate them as much as I can and teaching them how they could invest. I feel that in the long run has helped me be more successful overall, providing the education. I know that in the short term, it wasn't necessarily getting me the immediate deals. Some of those guys that I would educate go to other lenders and utilize what I taught them to make the deal work. But in the long run, it's actually turned out to be tenfold for me because of the amount of education that I put out there in the industry.
Yeah, usually the content game, that's a mid to long term kind of play for sure. But like you said, it always pays you back way more than you ever thought possible.
It has, it definitely has.
Yeah. So, what would be the number one obstacle a real estate investor is facing today when it comes to lending?
Um, the biggest thing that I'm seeing recently is structuring the deal so that they could return their cash flow as quick as possible. So, as you all know, the Burr method is the biggest um, way to make the best profit within a buy and hold situation and put yourself in a position where you continue to grow the portfolio with the Burr method.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
just jump in case somebody doesn't know what the Burr method is. It's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. I think I got
correct.
those in order, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to throw that in there.
So, what I've done with this is I've taught investors to make sure that when they're buying that property on the wholesale price point, because I mean that's the whole idea behind the Burr method, is they're including those renovations into the HUD or the Alta statement, is what the terminology is used for the title company. And by doing so, you're eliminating the 6 month waiting period that is required by the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in order to cash out refinance. So if you have your total acquisition into the day of closing, now you're able to recoup that complete acquisition minus your closing costs on the refinance. So if you're able to recoup 100% of your investment and only have to pay closing costs out of pocket, you're in a win-win situation at that point.
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. Well, you mentioned the money pit deal. So, is this going to be the keystone deal that we talk about?
It definitely can be. So this deal, we thought we were getting a steal. Market was selling for 70 to 90,000 all day long. Picked it up for 30 grand. Thought we were getting a steal from it. Thought we were going to have to only put like 20 grand into it. Probably since the only benefit of this money pit deal is that it has been rented since day one of owning it. So the tenants actually were willing to live in renovation worlds. Um, so that's the only benefit that we have. So I would say that we've probably only broken even on it with the amount of money that we put into it, because we probably ended up putting anywhere from 60 to 70,000 into it with the amount of repairs that it needed.
Yeah.
So it comes back to that due diligence, really truly investigating. And I found that not necessarily using a home inspector is going to be the best solution, but more so your general contractor that knows properties, more so existing properties, because those are the ones that are going to have the way to hide underlying issues if you don't know that type of environment.
Yeah. Well, let's even back up. How did you find the deal? Was it through a real estate agent or did you go direct to the seller?
It was a direct to the seller. My wife found it just by searching on the internet, and she had reached out to the sellers directly and then set up an appointment with at the time we used a hard money lender to buy the property, just because of the fact that we had a good relationship with I should say our private money lender. And he came to the property with her and saw it, but I wasn't able to meet her at the property. And they had pulled the bait and switch with her that if you don't buy it, the next seller that is coming over is going to buy it. So she kind of got feared because she thought that we were going to lose the deal, and she thought it was a great deal. And I let her pull the trigger without me being involved. And we learned that we're never going to make that decision of not doing a deal without each other being involved together in the grunt of things.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's one of those rookie mistakes you can call it, right? Getting
It
that
definitely is.
loss.
Yeah, it definitely is a rookie mistake. And, you live and learn. But, I mean, the resources that are available today when this deal happened were not as accessible as they are today. So the abilities for new investors to avoid these mistakes is so much easier to avoid because of all the different sites out there, podcasts, and all the different educational tools that are available for investors now to help to alleviate these mistakes.
Yeah. So you found a property, you pulled the trigger probably when you shouldn't have. You didn't find any of the underlying issues in the property. So how have you changed how you approach future rental properties so you don't make these mistakes again?
So during that process, we found a really good contractor that I've now become really good friends with. So anytime we're going to evaluate a property, he's right next to me, reviewing and analyzing and taking a look at everything and just kind of looking at the things that an inspector doesn't pay attention to. Just because he's going to know the difference because he's worked on so many different existing builds that are older homes. And that's the other thing is in New York, we have a lot of homes that are 70 or 100 years old. So there's a lot of things that could be missed just because of how old the houses are. I mean, they definitely have good guts, but you have to be aware of what potential problems could be had by them.
Yeah, for sure. So on the lending side, is there a good story you can tell us about maybe a keystone lending deal that really stands out?
I would say that there was a story that went bad for me that not doing enough due diligence of the front to investigate the income caused me to lose the deal because as I was getting the information, as I dug deeper into it, the way we had presented the income strategy of the borrower's businesses caused more issue than if I would have structured it the way it should have been. So not being able to structure the income lost me 7 real estate transactions for one investor at once and forced me to send it to a friend of mine that's in the business and give him the mistakes that I made within calculating the income so that he could present it to the underwriters correctly. But because I opened those can of worms with the underwriter, they weren't willing to forget what they saw and restructure the deal in order for it to make it work. So it's taught me to be very thorough with self-employed borrowers in ensuring that their income is calculated correctly and making sure that I'm using the right tools in doing so that when I do present it to underwriting, there's no questions asked.
Yeah. And, as real estate investors, it's sometimes it can be hard getting approved once you have a number of properties. So what sort of tips would you give to somebody if they are self-employed and working as a real estate investor? What things can they start doing to set themselves up for success when they are getting a loan?
So one thing that I would always suggest for somebody that's self-employed and is wanting to get into the real estate game, have a conversation with your loan officer to make sure that the income that you're putting on paper is going to be utilized and benefit to you for the lending side of the business. Just because not all the time you're going to be able to show enough income when you're self-employed because you could write so many things off. But if there's certain categories that you write it off in as a lender, you can add those things back into the income. So then it doesn't show as much of a loss. So just understanding the lending world and making sure that you are structuring the income so that it's lendable for the conventional side of the business is a key factor. Just because if you are not able to use their tax returns, then you have to go the commercial route or the hard money route just because they don't care about the personal income. They only care about the deal itself. And not all the time those rates are going to be as attractive as conventional financing or fixed for the 30-year period.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are definitely some good points to remember. So getting into real estate investing, how has that impacted you and your life and your family?
It's definitely impacted us in a positive manner. And the reason why I say that is the flexibility that I have in my personal real estate adventures plus my business real estate adventures to be able to accommodate for family needs. as my son has a rare syndrome that we've had to travel to Boston numerous times a year to ensure that he gets the proper care. So just the flexibility that real estate has given me, and the fact that people are more understanding than I realized. It's your situation when you're honest with them. So just having that flexibility with being able to accommodate my schedule for my family's needs versus a 9-to-5 job where they don't have the ability to accommodate that.
Yeah, it really is all about that time freedom.
It is, and the way to be able to control it and manage it. Because I could go home, play with kids, get them to bed, and get back to work, and nobody really cares. If I'm working till 2 o'clock in the morning, clients don't mind that. Sometimes they'll respond to me at that late at night, but it's something that the flexibility that I have is just a huge impact, just because it allows me to balance all the balls that we have to balance on a daily basis.
Yeah. And looking ahead, let's say 10 years from now, where do you see you and your real estate portfolio going in 10 years?
I would say within the 10 years, we probably would be in that 20 to 25 goal. And at that point, probably evaluating if we wanted to go further with it. Just because I don't see myself getting out of the lending industry side of it. And the only reason why I say that is I enjoy helping investors and helping them to grow portfolios and helping them be able to go beyond my scope. Because then once I know that they've exceeded their conventional lending side of it, then I know I've done my job as a loan officer to help them to grow that portfolio.
Yeah.
And just try to continue to find them solutions beyond me.
Yeah, for sure. So Jerry, if somebody's looking to reach out, get in touch, maybe they have some lending questions, where can they find you?
Best way to reach me would be my cell phone. So that is 585-204-6923. You could text, voice, or voicemail. But that's truly the best way to get in contact with me. I always do have my phone on me. So cell phone is the easiest way for initial contact, and then we can continue it further at that point.
No, sounds good. Well, Jerry, just want to say thanks so much for sharing those stories and those tips from the lending side.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure was mine. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.